Welcome to Despicable Maine Deep Dive.
Glad to be diving in.
Today on the show, we're looking into the killing and cover-up of Arthur Smith Jr.
It's a really unsettling case out of Hancock County, Maine.
Yeah, we've got quite a collection here. Articles, some notes, even a phone call recording with Arthur Smith Jr.'s father. It paints a pretty disturbing picture.
It really does.
So our mission today really is to unpack how a fatal accident, one involving alcohol, mind you, seems to have just, well, vanished into thin air.
And we need to look closely at the alleged role of local connections in making it vanish.
Okay, so let's start maybe with the night itself. April 28th, 2007, Jill Isle. She was 31 at the time.
Right. And sources say she'd actually been kicked out of a bar earlier that night for being too intoxicated.
Kicked out, okay. So she's driving home. It's late, just before 1 a.m. on Route 3 in Trenton.
And that's when her minivan strikes and kills Arthur Smith Jr. He was only 26, just walking.
Just walking. Now, the initial police line was that maybe rain and fog were likely to blame.
Yeah, that was the immediate suggestion. Which, weather happens, but...
But then the first news report, a couple of days later in the Bangor Daily News, it starts laying out some specifics.
It identifies both Arthur Smith Jr. and Jill Isle.
And it mentions an unidentified passenger in Isle's van, which is interesting. We'll come back to that.
Definitely. The sheriff's deputy, Jeff Turcotte, he's quoted saying Smith was walking in the travel lane. Kind of specific early on.
Very specific. And here's a kicker. The article says it was, quote, unknown whether speed or alcohol were involved at this time.
Despite state law requiring alcohol testing in fatal accidents.
Exactly. It's like investigating a fire but saying, we don't know if accelerants were involved yet. We're waiting for results. You'd test immediately, wouldn't you? If it were you or me in that situation.
You'd think so. The article does say they were waiting for results on the alcohol test.
Right. It also notes Isle and this passenger had minor injuries, wearing seatbelts. That's according to Turcotte again.
Then, just 3 days later, a follow-up piece mentions the police might never know why he was walking in the middle of the road.
See, that narrative solidifies fast, doesn't it? Blame the victim.
It seems that way. Now, about that alcohol test.
Ah, yes, the test they were waiting for. Turns out it wasn't administered for, like, 2 to 3 hours after the accident.
2 to 3 hours? That's a significant delay when you're talking about blood alcohol content.
Significant is putting it mildly. It's like waiting half the day to check the fridge temperature after the power goes out. The evidence degrades.
Precisely. And when the results did come back, Isle's BAC was 0.07%.
Just under the legal limit of 0.08%. But how accurate is that after a 2 to 3 hour wait?
It's a huge question mark. Her BAC could easily have been over the limit at the actual time of the crash.
And this is where those connections start to feel relevant. Critically, Jill Isle was Jeff Toothaker's paralegal.
Right. Jeff Toothaker, a local criminal defense attorney. That's her boss.
But not just her boss, according to our sources. They were apparently friends, too.
And Toothaker's role is even more interesting because he also reportedly works for the district attorney's office.
So you got the driver in a fatal accident who's the paralegal and friend of a defense attorney who also works for the prosecution side. Am I getting that right?
That seems to be the setup, yeah. It's complex.
And the district attorney herself at the time, Coletta Bassano.
And our information suggests that Isle, Toothaker, and D.A. Bassano were all reportedly well acquainted. Friends, even.
Okay, so you have the driver, her boss friend who works for the DA, and the DA herself, all apparently knowing each other well.
It certainly creates an appearance, at the very least, of potential conflict or, let's say, favorable conditions.
Favorable conditions for making things disappear, like maybe the evidence.
Well, consider this. The sheriff's department allegedly refused to let anyone see the vehicle involved. Not even Arthur Smith Jr.'s parents.
Why would they do that? What's the supposed reason?
The claim is that the damage was primarily to the passenger side of minivan.
Passenger side, wait. If he was walking in the travel lane, wouldn't the damage be more to the front or driver's side?
Exactly. Passenger side damage would suggest Isle might have drifted off the road, onto the shoulder perhaps, and clipped Smith there.
Which completely contradicts Deputy Turcotte's statement that Smith was walking in the travel lane.
It does, and if that's the case, hiding the vehicle prevents people from seeing evidence that contradicts the official story.
So what other reason could there possibly be to hide the primary piece of physical evidence in a fatal accident investigation? It just beggars belief.
It's highly irregular, to put it mildly.
So we have a fatal accident, a driver who had been drinking, a delayed BAC test that came back just under the limit, connections between the driver, her attorney boss, and a DA. and hidden evidence. What happens next? Arrest. Charges.
No. Despite the fatality, despite the alcohol in her system, Jill Isle was never arrested.
Never arrested. Okay, what about court?
The first court hearing didn't happen until 4 years after Arthur Smith Jr. was killed.
4
Yeah.
years. What takes 4 years?
That's the question, isn't it? And at that hearing, Deputy District Attorney Carletta Bassano, the DA we mentioned earlier, announced Isle would not be prosecuted.
Just like that, after 4 years, what was the justification?
Bassano stated, "The status of this case at this point is that it is closed." And then, this incredible line, "That case went through that process and it simply did not survive."
It did not survive. What does that even mean? It's like saying your term paper spontaneously decided not to exist anymore. What process allows a fatal accident involving alcohol to just evaporate?
It's vague language, certainly. And a review of grand jury indictments apparently showed Isle was never actually indicted.
So it never even got to the stage where a grand jury decided if there was enough evidence to charge her.
It appears not. When asked about this, Bassano reportedly declined to comment, citing confidentiality.
Confidentiality.
Right.
This smells strongly of what some people allege about Hancock County.
The good old boys club allegation, yes. The claim that it's a system where connections matter more than justice.
And the allegation goes further, doesn't it? That the grand jury itself is supposedly made up of, like, wives and relatives of members of the good old boys club.
That's the claim, suggesting the system might be insular and biased towards protecting its own.
Arthur Smith Sr., the victim's father, certainly believes that. We heard it in the phone call. He's adamant the case was botched from the start.
He points specifically to that delayed alcohol test and the immediate effort, as he saw it, to blame his son for being in the road.
But the sheriff, William Clark, he pushed back, right? Said his department did everything appropriately.
Yes, he stated he stands behind the investigation. So you have these two completely opposing views of the same events.
Now let's talk about the media angle. The Ellsworth American newspaper. There are allegations about them too.
Yeah, the accusation is that the paper is basically controlled or at least heavily influenced by county officials.
And that their reporting is biased. Like, they go hard on guys not in the club, but for women or club members, the blame gets shifted or the details are just minimal.
That's the allegation. Negative framing for outsiders, kid gloves, or blame shifting for insiders.
But the most concrete and frankly shocking thing is what happened to the articles about this specific case on their website.
They're gone, completely scrubbed. All articles related to the accident, even Arthur Smith Jr.'s obituary.
Vanished. It's insane. I mean, you can probably still find your speeding ticket from 1992 online somewhere, but a fatal accident report and an obituary connected to potentially influential people, poof, gone.
Arthur Smith Sr. confirmed this in that phone call we mentioned. He explicitly stated the articles were removed.
And he also confirmed something else crucial in that call, didn't he?
He did. He reiterated that Jill Isle was, in fact, Jeff Toothaker's paralegal at the time.
So connecting those dots again. And he shared a really heartbreaking story from that court appearance, the one 4 years later.
He did. He recounted how, apparently, Jill Isle's recently born child was brought up. The implication seemed to be, she has a baby, jail isn't appropriate.
While his son, Arthur Jr., also had children, 2 of them who were now fatherless because of this incident. And their situation wasn't mentioned at all.
According to Mr. Smith Sr., no. It's a stark contrast in how the consequences were presented, focusing on the driver's new family situation while seemingly ignoring the victim's children.
Just devastating. Okay, so no criminal charges, but there was a civil suit, right, against the bar.
Yes, the bar that served Jill Isle before the accident, the one that kicked her out for being too intoxicated, they were sued.
And they lost. Or settled.
They settled. The lawsuit was successful. Reports say the settlement for Arthur Smith Jr.'s children was around $7,000.
$7,000. Wow. But the fact the bar lost or settled the suit, doesn't that basically function as an admission that Isle was overserved and intoxicated when she left?
It certainly implies liability on the bar's part for serving an intoxicated person who then caused harm. It strongly supports the idea she was drunk.
So, the civil side says, yes, she was likely intoxicated due to overserving, but the criminal side says, nope, case closed, didn't survive the process. Makes total sense.
The disconnect is glaring.
And throughout all this, what happened to the unidentified passenger mentioned in that very first news report?
Still unidentified. Their identity remains a complete mystery, which just adds another layer of suspicion and unanswered questions. Who were they? Why were they never named or apparently interviewed thoroughly?
Right. It just fuels the speculation. Were they protecting someone else too? We just don't know.
We don't.
So looking at everything, the death of Arthur Smith Jr., the way the investigation was handled, the lack of prosecution, it raises some really serious, deeply troubling questions about justice, about accountability, especially in Hancock County.
The alleged influence of these personal connections, Toothaker, Bassano, Isle, combined with things like the scrubbed newspaper articles, it paints a very disturbing picture.
It really does. So the question we leave you with is, what does this case make you think about how justice might work or not work, depending on who's involved? What other questions does this deep dive raise for you?
It's worth pondering.
And if you have any information, links, audio, video, anything related to this story, or maybe other stories out of Maine you think we should look into, please send it over. The email is despicablemaine@gmail.com.
We appreciate any leads or information listeners might have.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in to the Despicable Maine Deep Dive Podcast.
Thanks for listening.
And remember, living in the state of Maine is theft of your life.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
Is this Arthur Smith Sr.?
Yes, this is Arthur Smith, Sr.
Hancock County is about one of the crookedest counties ever. All the articles have been scrubbed from the Ellsworth American website.
Yes.
Have you noticed that?
Yes, I think I have, because I used to just type, Stu Ben Man, and they'd say, was killed on the Trenton Road. And
Okay, all the articles are gone from the Ellsworth American website, and there's only like 2 articles left. Yeah, there's only like 2 articles left on the Bangor Daily website. Do you know who the other, did you know that Jill Isle was Jeff Toothaker's paralegal?
yes, I did.
Okay, because I had a, Brian.
He worked for her. Yeah.
Okay, now do you know who the other passenger was with her that night?
Her father owned a business down there in Bar Harbor, and she was taken home from the bar. What's that? Her name was Misty Gart.
And that's who was with that Jill Isle that night?
That's who was with Jill Isle when she struck my son, yeah. Yeah, the bar was sued anyway. I had Joe Boynstein done the stuff for the children. He sued the bar for $7,000 something for letting her drive drunk home. No, she was never charged. No, we went there. We had the whole family. We had to have the whole family up there one day at court, and she was let go. They said she had a 2-year-old girl, I guess, growing 2-3-year-old girl in, and they said, well, she's got a little child she has to bring up. They brought that up in court, and right, I said, well, I was saying my son's got 2 children of his own. I got 2 grandchildren left out of him. Yeah.
And this is why Jill Isle had the kid, is so this could be said in the court, because she didn't have a kid until about a year after this accident, and it was approximately 3 years old at the time of the court thing. And this is a typical tactic.
They surely covered it up all right. It's been 13 years. His birthday was March 28th, and April 28th will be the 13th year. Yeah, and they never done nothing to her. They waited 2-3 hours before they took her to the Ellsworth Hospital, and she was just under the legal limit. But Christ, killing somebody and drinking, I was awful. I was really pissed about it. But I can't say enough. I couldn't never say enough for what I was. How she got away with being on the wrong side of the road, and some school children had come through there about the time he walked. He got drove out of this house down there, and his car wasn't working. That's why he was walking on the road. In the newspaper article, it says he was walking down the middle of the road. How would they do that? No, he wasn't, because the children in the school bus, there was a school bus went by that night earlier and saw they had a high school thing going on, or some damn thing. I can't remember what it is right now. I got it written down. I got a whole bunch of stuff written down about it. And you wouldn't believe the articles that people wrote about that. But anyway.
And everything was scrubbed from the Ellsworth American newspaper. You cannot find a mention of her or anybody, anything about that whole entire thing. So they purged stuff.
She lived right up there, and I know where she lived too, but she moved out of there, claimed that she moved to Bangor. Nobody knows where she is. She was on Facebook at one time, but she's got off there because nobody knows where she is. I guess she's afraid somebody's going to do something to her or something.
She was Jeff Toothaker's paralegal. Jeff Toothaker works for the district attorney. I mean, he's been wrongfully convicted people for years, and Bassano knew her, and so did the sheriff guy. They all knew her.
Because she was in front of her, my wife and I sat in front of her then, she says, we're going to start at the bottom of this and work our way to the top and find out what's going on, what we can do. Oh, yeah, there was all one big family. That's what I call family.
They call themselves the Good Old Boys Club.
Well, they knew what they were doing. They got her out of that. I mean, if I'd done it, I'd just suspected a year or 2 or more than that if I'd run over somebody and killed them. I mean,
Oh, you'd have been thrown in jail immediately? You'd have been denied bail and all that stuff?
Yes, I would have been. I'd had to get out. I'd had to go to court, but I'd been in jail. She never even went to jail. She was let go.
Well, it goes to show you the favoritism that goes on, and I noticed that after the accident, the next mention of it, even in the newspaper, was 4 years later.
I've been on it ever since it happened. It's been in my mind. I can't understand how, like I said, killing my son and stuff like that. They said that, she said right in court, she said nobody should be walking after dark at that time of night. Well, how in the hell, if somebody's car busts down or something, how are you going to get home? And she said nobody should be out walking after dark at 1 in the morning. Because it was 5 minutes to 1 when she struck him.
I see how they twisted it around in the newspaper and made it his fault, and then they totally ignored all that stuff.
They made it all his fault. She said he'd walk in the middle of the road. They impounded the car, wouldn't let me. I couldn't look at the car or nothing because I didn't really want to anyway. But the van, they claim it was right on the passenger side, and he took the antenna. She threw him into the air because she was going quite fast when she hit him.
She probably drifted off into the breakdown lane. Yeah.
She was drifting off. Yeah. Yeah, they said she was. The traffic reconstruction figured out that they did say that. I heard that she was on that side of the road, but they claimed that he was in the middle of the road. And that's why but he wasn't. He hit the passenger side of her car. So everyone since I've lost him has been bad to me, But the way they handled it was what pissed me off. I don't care what I say, but the way they handled it, they were all for her and not. Nothing for the one, and never had no sympathy for us where we lost a son. And they wanted to protect her because she had a little 3-year-old girl she had to bring up. That's what they said.
You mentioned that your son having the 2 kids.
No, they didn't. They mentioned nothing.
Well, it shows you what they are, really,
It does.
And how the system is rigged.
Her name is God. Christy. I think her name is Christy God.
Misty night of April's cry, a man was walking, didn't want to die. But fate came fast in a flash of chrome, left Arthur cold and all alone. No flashing lights, no siren call, just silence from the courthouse wall. And the one who held the wheel that night, she walked away, they dimmed the light. This is Despicable Maine, yeah, we're calling the game, where justice fades and they bury the name. Arthur's blood on a back country road, and they swept it all under the good old code. Oh, Despicable Maine, they turned away, and the killer got to see another day. They say she drank, they say she swayed, 3 hours passed before they weighed. Her blood was hot, her hands weren't clean, but the badge boys wiped the record clean. No cuffs, no charge, no court to face, just tears in time and a closed case. The papers lied, the truth got burned, and Arthur's kids, what did they learn? Echo boy, echo ring on the wall. He scrubbed his name, erased the past. Obituary gone, ain't justice supposed to last. But when you're friends with the law, the rules don't apply. They covered their tracks while a father cried. Despicable Maine, where silence reigns, where the good old boys don't feel no shame. Arthur's bluff ain't just a crash, it's a cover-up coal and a family's ash. Yeah, Despicable Maine, say it loud, you can't bury the truth in a whispering crowd. While the newspaper twists alibis, they locked the facts behind closed doors, cause she knew them all, and they kept score. They blame the man who's in the ground while protecting their own in a backwoods town. But Arthur's name's not fading fast, we're singing this truth till it kicks their ass. Despicable Maine, corruption's throne, where justice died on a 2-lane road. And the ones who swore to uphold the law just watched and grinned, they dropped the jaw. Yeah, Despicable Maine, hear the call. Arthur still speaks to us all. Oh, this song ain't just for Arthur, it's for every voice they try to silence. tried to silence.